Luke is the world's greatest assassin who was betrayed in isekai to another world. But everything changes when he realizes his ticket to freedom is assassinating a literal god. Instead, he starts cracking everyone else's skulls first. Before his new game Plus, Luke was a professional ghost, wiping out mafia goons like a budget Agent 47. Even though he was the most op hitman on Earth, he was tired of the violence and just wanted to hang up the silencer. Luke checks in with his organization one last time, dreaming of a retirement filled with piña coladas and bed-breaking yoga. But on the flight to his new life, his retirement plan gets hijacked, literally. The pilots are dead, and when Luke tries to save the day, he sees a fighter jet pulling up next to him. That's when it hits him. His own organization just cancelled his subscription to life. Next thing he knows, he's at the pearly gates with his blood boiling, wondering why a lifetime of loyalty and top-tier wet work ended with a knife in his back. He spent his whole life being the best at murder, only to be murdered by the people he worked for. Suddenly, a hand reaches out, and he wakes up in the throne room of a very bored goddess. She thinks it's actually hilarious that the world's finest assassin got assassinated himself. So she offers him a redo in a fantasy world with all his past life memories intact. Luke knows there's no such thing as a free lunch and asks who he needs to put in the dirt. She's impressed by his sharp mind and tells him that in this world of swords and sorcery, his target is the legendary hero. Luke hits the pause button to get some things off his chest, explaining that he's tired of being an emotionless tool and wants to actually live a life for himself this time. The goddess is totally chill with that as long as the hero gets deleted, so she uploads the entire wiki of this new world directly into his brain. Then she lets him customize his build with op skills and attributes so he can actually stand a chance against the hero. After that, she opens the portal and tells him he'll be reborn as the heir to a noble family of professional killers. The next thing Luke sees is his exit from his mom's beef pouch, where he's greeted by his dad, Sion, who's already planning his training. His mom, Esri, is worried about losing him, but Sion promises to turn Luke into a powerhouse that the kingdom will desperately need. Fast forward a few years, and Luke is thriving. He can't use magic yet, so he spends his days hunting rabbits to max out his physical stats and killer instincts. Back at the house, he's putting those kills to use, making sure his diet is dialed in for maximum gains every single day. Honestly, he's serving up Gordon Ramsay-level plates like he's in an episode of Food Wars. His parents are blown away by his growth, and Sion is convinced that his son is going to be way more op than he ever was. While eating some cream rabbit stew, they're so impressed they suggest making it the family specialty for the upcoming harvest festival. Soaking in the wholesome vibes, Luke realizes he never had this kind of family love in his original life. Once the plates are cleared, it's back to the grind in the family dungeon for a little father-son bonding, which is basically just a brutal exam to check his progress. His dad needs to see if Luke is finally ready to officially inherit the family business. See, behind his dad's kind smile is the kingdom's top medical expert. But he's also their lead assassin, making the family the literal masters of life and death for the entire crown. Luke knows this is the perfect spawn point for his mission to take down the hero. After the test, Sion decides Luke is ready for the next level, inheriting the Mystic Eyes. These things grant insane vision and let the user see mana, which is basically a cheat code for an assassin. Sion preps the magical surgery to install them and asks Luke if he's catching any nerves. But our MC is locked in, trusting his old man's skills to get the job done safely. A few days post-op, Luke is recovering in the garden. His mom sees the bandages and takes the chance to pamper him with her melons. Then Dad shows up to peel the bandages off, and they're stunned to see Luke is already fully recovered and ready to roll. Once the wraps are off, Luke realizes his vision is now officially beyond human limits. He's got built-in binoculars and can see the mana flowing through people like a thermal camera. That's when Sion drops the good news. He finally secured a magic tutor for Luke, and our MC is hyped. On the day of the meeting, his mom forces him into a dress, apparently wanting him to look like a fantasy version of James Charles. And since he's a good son, Luke just has to take the L. Outside, the instructor pulls up, and Luke is shocked to see she's basically his age. This is Daya from a family that's tight with Luke's clan and owes them a massive favor. To prove she's not just some NPC, she flexes her mana by dropping a literal mini nuke, proving she's the real deal. Daya takes Luke to the garden and tells him they've only got 2 weeks to turn him into a master of the mystic arts. First step is a vibe check on his potential. She hands him a mana-storing stone and tells him to fill it up as much as he can. Luke starts pouring it in, and for a second it looks like a whole lot of nothing. But then the mana starts overflowing like a broken fire hydrant. Daya starts losing it, because nobody should have this much juice in the tank. Little does she know, Luke has a rapid recovery skill. The stone starts cracking from the pressure, and Daya screams for him to yeet it before it blows. When Luke tosses it, the rock detonates with enough energy to rival a spirit bomb, sending shockwaves through the whole neighborhood. The parents rush outside to see what the commotion is, and Daya is terrified she's about to get fired or worse. But when they realize Luke caused the explosion, they just praise him as a prodigy and thank Daya for being such a great teacher. Talk about chill parents. That night, while Luke is trying to get some shut-eye, Daya invades his room and claims the spot right next to him, announcing that she's officially his big sister now. Luke is beyond confused, and Daya hints that his dad is hiding some secrets, but he decides to just take the W and go to sleep. The next day, they check his elemental attributes, and Daya is floored to find out Luke can use all 4, which is basically as rare as Yamcha actually winning a fight. She starts guiding him on how to convert mana into elements, getting close and personal, which is a total first for our MC. She promises to be gentle for his first time, with magic obviously. And she makes sure his first experience with the Earth attribute is a memorable one. Luke feels his mana changing colors as it gets a purpose, and he tries infusing a stone again. This time he starts seeing weird letters forming in his mind's eye. Daya explains that those are the actual spell formulas. In this world, spells are divine revelations, and the more you cast, the more the gods unlock new ones for you to use. To pop off a spell you just chanted in your head, but when Luke tries to copy her, he realizes he can't actually read this high-tier UI. Since he's basically illiterate here, Daya flexes her magic and spawns a copper coin out of thin air. Luke watches the move and tries to mirror the incantation. But his pronunciation is totally cooked, and instead of pure copper, he spawns something that looks like the aftermath of a Taco Bell run. Realizing he needs to work on his accent, he asks Daya for a tutoring session, and she's more than happy to help. That night, Luke is grinding his studies when Daya pulls another sneak attack on his bed. She's obsessed with his cooking and can't figure out how a kid younger than her is so skilled at everything. He dodges the question and just promises to keep the 5-star meals coming. A few days later, Luke shows off his progress by spawning a copper stone that's just as high quality as Daya's. She's hyped, but Luke is already thinking about how to break the system even further. He asks her to write a spell down so he can try casting it from a piece of paper. Daya says that's literally never been done, but she's down for the experiment. She writes down an iron creation spell for him. When Luke reads it and it actually works, she's stunned, wondering why no mage in history ever thought of taking notes. Looking at the written spells, Luke notices a pattern and realizes he can basically code his own magic. He has Daya write down every spell she knows, thinking that if he can find the source code, he can rewrite the rules to create brand new abilities. After analyzing the data, Luke figures out how to program a spell that creates literal gold. He tells her to give the new code a try. But when she tries, her brain basically blue screens and she collapses, making them think the spell is bugged. However, when Luke tries it, it works perfectly, leaving Daya in total awe. Luke realizes that only a spell weaver like him can create magic from scratch, but he finds a workaround by writing the instructions himself. And when Daya reads his version, it works like a charm, spawning gold right in her hands. She's overjoyed that they can basically print money together, and they seal the deal with a celebratory fist bump. Later on, the duo head out to a remote spot to test their more explosive inventions without the neighbors complaining. They end up inventing some American magic in the form of a rifle that uses fire spells to launch projectiles. They name it Fire, and while Daya thinks it's the coolest thing ever, Luke knows he's gonna need a much bigger gun to put the hero in the ground. Our MC decides to overclock the spell, and his little experiment creates a literal cannon, absolutely flooring Dyer. He test fires it on a small island and completely deletes it from the map. Honestly, the kind of treatment Epstein Island deserved. But after just one shot, the barrel starts cracking. Luke realizes he's gonna need some premium materials if he wants a weapon that doesn't self-destruct. Dyer's loving the vibe of the heavy artillery, and Luke tells her she should build one too, but she lets him know that she doesn't have his level of mana and is more than happy with her small rifle. That night, Dyer gets all sentimental and cuddles up to Luke, knowing it's her last night in town and wishing this moment could last forever. Luke isn't just gonna let her leave empty-handed. He crafts a custom knife using the best materials he's managed to produce, telling her it's a memento of their training grind. He hands it over, admitting he never would have mastered magic without her help. Dyer fires right back, saying without him, she never would have learned to code her own spells, and now she's more obsessed with magic than ever. She hands him her necklace made from a mana stone, making him promise to come find her if she ever really needs him. Luke locks it in with a pinky swear, and they officially seal the deal. The next morning, Luke's parents give Dyer their thanks for the carry, but she stays humble, telling them Luke's growth is all thanks to his own talent. Once Dyer dips, Sion decides it's finally time for Luke to learn the ways of the family business. He takes him to a prison full of low-life criminals to explain that their family's job is basically playing doctor and janitor for the kingdom, saving lives while deleting the diseases. Luke wonders why his dad didn't just raise him to be a cold-blooded, emotionless tool from the start to make the perfect assassin. Sion reminds him that they're human beings, not just weapons. They assassinate with a purpose to help the kingdom, not just blindly spray and pray like some common soldier. He presents Luke with a girl who's got a laundry list of crimes: theft, murder, and arson. Sion tells Luke to finish her off however he wants as part of his training. The girl starts crying for mercy, swearing she's innocent, but our MC stays absolutely cold and unmoved. He calmly draws his blade and takes her hand off, explaining that she'll pass out from blood loss and die without feeling a thing. In her final moments, the girl's mask slips and she starts screaming insults, wishing he'd rot in hell with the demons. Luke doesn't even flinch, he just yeets his knife to silence her for good. Years fly by, and Luke is touring the market with his parents to see how much the region is thriving. His dad is hyped about the economy, even giving props to the cream stew recipe Luke invented. Meanwhile, his mother is still trying to baby him like he's looking for his next fix of her creamy nectar. Luke refuses to be barbied because in secret, he's on a scouting mission, using his mana eyes to scan the crowd for potential recruits. He spots someone with mana, but they're way too old to be useful. He needs a young assistant for his hero-slaying mission, but since only high-tier nobles usually have mana, finding a candidate is proving to be a challenge. Throughout the entire kingdom, it's mostly just the elite who have mana, which makes headhunting for his mission almost impossible. A few days later, he heads into the forest to hunt for some winter supplies. And deep inside, he finds a poor girl all alone. She's starving and near death after her family kicked her out because they couldn't afford another mouth to feed. Just then, a pack of wolves show up to turn her into minced meat, and she's ready to give up and let them have their snack. But Luke arrives just in time, sniping one through the dome before dropping down to handle the rest of the beasts as a warm-up. He summons some magical gauntlets and a blade, treating these hungry wolves like they're just basic training dummies. The wolves attempt to overwhelm him, but he deletes them one by one, efficiently turning them into target practice. Once the final wolf collapses, Luke turns to the golden-haired girl and asks what she's doing so deep in the forest. She explains her family abandoned her to die because they had too many mouths to feed. A stranger told her this region was wealthy, so she traveled here hoping for a miracle. After hearing her sob story, Luke sets up camp and whips up some porridge. He fills a bowl and warns her not to inhale it too fast, or she won't be getting any seconds. She thanks him and starts eating like she hasn't seen food in weeks. While he steps away to drain the wolves, he looks back and her bowl is already empty. He serves her another round, feeling bad for what she's been through. Apparently, her homeland is run by a greedy tyrant who's taxing everyone into the dirt. To calm her down, Luke reveals he's the son of the local lord, which instantly lights her up. She then mentions a dream where God told her she'd have a fated encounter. And she's convinced meeting Luke is that destined moment. Luke realizes the goddess must have set this meeting up and asks if she wants to come live with him. He promises she'll never be cold or hungry again, straight up telling her that he needs her. Hearing that she's actually wanted means everything to her, and she eagerly agrees. He warns her he's no saint, he's a killer and he's gonna keep killing to finish his mission. But Tart doesn't care, she's ready to do whatever it takes to stay by his side. She introduces herself as Tart, and with his mana eyes, Luke confirms she's the gifted assistant the goddess sent to help him win. Meanwhile, the goddess keeps sending other elite souls to this world with the same mission, but unlike our MC, they all turned into lazy bums with beer bellies who spend way too much time gooning. 2 years later, Tart has grown into a total baddie who looks like she's ready for a casting couch session. As Luke's loyal servant, she takes care of everything from waking him up to cleaning his face, and even Luke's parents are impressed he snagged such a top-tier bombshell. After breakfast, they hit the training room. Luke's dad made it clear Tart is Luke's responsibility. If she ever betrays the family, Luke has to be the one who pushes the dagger into her throat. Luke accepted the terms and has been grinding her into a lethal weapon. But Tart is still struggling with the standard assassin knife, and she keeps getting countered whenever she tries to sneak up on him. Still, Luke sees her hard work and knows that with the right training, she'll be a formidable tool for his mission. But he's still trying to figure out how to make her favorite weapon, a massive spear, stealth-worthy. That night he finds Tart practicing with her knife, looking absolutely discouraged. She's terrified he'll get rid of her for being bad at it, but Luke has a plan. Luke tells her it's pointless to keep grinding with a weapon that doesn't fit her style. Tart starts begging him to keep her around, promising she'll do anything to stay by his side. Luke calms her down and presents her with a custom folding spear, perfect for staying low-key. With that, Tart shows off her moves, proving she's a beast when she's got the right gear. She sees Luke clapping for her and giving his approval, which makes her day. She vows that with this weapon, she'll become someone he can truly rely on. The next morning, Luke wakes up to find Tart in his bed and asks why she's invading his personal space. She explains she brought tea, saw him sleeping and decided to take a nap next to him. She thanks him for the spear and vows to become his ultimate shield. Luke thinks everything is going exactly according to plan. Until she starts bumping her balloons against his head. Now he's wondering if he accidentally recruited a freaky wench. Back at the goddess's place, we see she once sent the world's best samurai on this mission, but the dude got absolutely cooked in the end. Meanwhile, Luke and Tart head to the market where everyone is treating Luke like a celebrity for his inventions, like modern fertilizers and vibrating pickles for the lonely wives. Hours later, on the way home, Tart points out how much the people love him. Luke explains that winning hearts and minds is just part of the job, a concept he never understood in his past life. He hands her a tomato and asks if she wished she was born a noble, but she's happy being his servant. Luke tells her he would have found her in any life anyway. Tart realizes he's won her heart just as much as he needs her skills. That night, Luke is back in his room stockpiling mana stones. After studying Dyer's gift, he figured out how to mass-produce them and turn them into bombs for the eventual showdown with the hero. Just as he finishes, Tart knocks on his door to tell him his dad wants to see him. Luke heads down to the training room where Sion asks for a status report on Tart's progress. Luke gushes about her growth, but Sion is more interested in her loyalty. Luke confirms she's definitely not a spy, having monitored her 24/7 for any signs of deception. Sion thinks it's a 1 in a million miracle to find a mana user in the woods, but he chalks it up to divine luck. Then Sion reveals the final phase of Luke's training, a test and a practical mission. If Luke clears both, he's officially a full-fledged assassin for the family. Luke is locked in and accepts the challenge. Sion announces the test is a duel against him, not to win, but just to see if the MC has what it takes. Luke explains that since saving her, he's been scanning her speech and vibes for any signs of a 200 IQ betrayal. But she's actually legit. Sin thinks it's a total plot armor miracle that a high-mana girl was just chilling in the woods exactly when Luke passed by. But Luke just chalks it up to a divine, it is what it is. Then Sin reveals the real reason for the meeting. It's time for Luke's training to hit the next level. Phase 2 is simple, pass a written test and then a field exercise. He declares that if Luke clears both, he's officially part of the family and can start taking on real-deal contracts. Built different as always, Luke accepts the challenge. Sin announces the test is a duel against him, not to win, but just to see if the kid actually has those op hands. That night in the woods, the assassin duel kicks off, and Luke immediately starts using every dirty trick in the book. The moment he spots Sion, arrows start flying, but Luke just deflects them with his knives like it's nothing. He charges in to close the gap, but Sion is just built different. He counters and snaps Luke's ankle like a twig. Luke uses his good leg to yeet himself away, buying just enough time to pop a mid-fight heel with his magic. By the time he's patched up, Sion has already vanished back into the shadows, forcing Luke to start thinking 3 steps ahead. Suddenly, the bushes start rustling, and Luke moves to dodge, only to realize he's being baited into a trap. He barely avoids it, but the noise was just a decoy. Sion spawns out of nowhere and goes for a lethal slash. Luke's reflexes are the only thing keeping him alive, but he's left wide open as Sion presses the attack relentlessly. It's full defensive mode now, with Luke parrying for his life until he finally spots a pixel-perfect opening to strike. The second he makes his move, Sion slips back into the dark, giving Luke a literal second to catch his breath. He realizes Sion is basically reading his mind, so Luke decides to try and predict the predictor. He tries to sense his old man, but the veteran assassin is a ghost. The only warning he gets is 2 blades coming at him from opposite sides. He deflects both, but Sion drops from the ceiling a heartbeat later, and Luke takes a nasty stab to the shoulder. But it was a bait. Luke already has his own knife pressed against Sion's throat. GG, the student becomes the master. Hours later, Sion is helping Luke patch up the battle scars. He admits he never actually expected to take the L against his own son. Luke humble brags that Sion could have easily won if he'd just used magic. Sion disagrees and even calls Luke out for nerfing himself during the duel. But Luke explains that using magic would have completely defeated the purpose of the skill test. Sion smiles, loving the mindset, and declares that the only thing Luke is missing now is a bit more XP. After that, the duo goes on missions to delete degenerate nobles and absolute creeps, with Luke soaking up every bit of veteran wisdom. One day they're heading home after a house call, and Sion drops the next phase. Luke needs a secret identity, and this time he's playing a merchant. Sion reveals he set up a fake child in the Bala trading company records years ago, just for this moment. A kid who was conveniently born at the exact same time as our MC. This Ilig Bala was added to the registry because the Bala boss owed Sion a massive favor. The mission, live as Ilig for 2 years, learn the money game, and build a massive spy network under that name. A few days later, the family throws a farewell party to mark Luke's departure into the merchant world. Sion is hyping him up, and everyone's on board except this one salty NPC named Rona. Rona is fuming because he was next in line for the throne until Luke spawned in and took his job. To settle the beef, Sion sets up a duel. Winner takes the heir title and all the glory. Before the guy can even finish his sentence, Luke has a blade at Rona's throat. Rona cries cheat code after Luke teleports behind him, so Sion tells his son to put the knife away and catch these hands instead. In about 5 seconds, Luke shows him the massive power gap and pins him to the dirt. While the crowd goes wild, Luke later visits Rona, who admits he's just bitter about being outplayed by a kid. Luke tells him to keep his head up, reminding him that if anyone should be salty about losing to him, it's Sion. Rona is shook. He didn't think the rumors about Sion losing to his own son were actually true. Luke confirms it and promises that when he's the boss, he'll treat Rona right as long as he falls in line. He knows Rona is a high-tier knight, and he needs some muscle for the endgame. Rona accepts the deal, and in return, Luke gifts him a sword made from that same op material he gave to Dyer. The next day, Luke and Tart dip from the region, heading for Mildew to start their new life as the Bala Squad. In that same city, a group of homeless girls was barely surviving by offering tour guide services to the tourists. Their leader Mahar is a total girl boss who's dreaming of buying a house so they can all live together in peace. But one rainy day, business is dead, and the girls are forced to hide in their makeshift shelter counting their pennies. That's when some vicious goons show up to take them into custody. Mahar tries to fight back with magic, knocking one dude out and giving her friends a chance to make a run for it. They scatter, but the goons are persistent and manage to snag Mahar and two other girls. They get tossed into a wagon and hauled to a creepy compound outside the city limits. The leader of the creeps, Toran, greets them with a greasy smile and says this hellhole is their new home. He tells them if they act like good dogs, they won't have any problems. One of the girls tries to protest, saying they never signed up for an orphanage. But the goon who dragged them there just shuts her up with a backhand. He warns them that if they keep acting up, the punishment is gonna get way worse than a slap. The girls are shoved into a cramped room with the rest of their squad who were already captured. Despite the situation, they're just relieved that everyone is still alive and mostly in one piece. The oldest girl, Ifa, reveals that Toran is just farming kids for the reward money provided by the Lord's wife, pocketing all the charity for himself. The goon returns with a single sack of food and tells them it has to last the whole squad for a week. After he dips, they divide up the pitiful rations and try to make the best of it. They sit there in silence, staring at their sad meals, absolutely terrified of what's coming next. Eventually, one of them tries to stay positive, saying at least they still have each other. In the following days, they're treated worse than NPCs, getting brutalized for every little mistake they make. While they're being forced to do all the chores, Toran yells at his goon for hitting them, but only because he doesn't want to damage the merchandise before he pimps them out. One day, a Viscount shows up for a tour, pays Toran some dirty money, and picks out which girl he wants to play with. That night, the goon calls Ifa and Mahar outside. He drenches Ifa and orders Mahar to clean her up and put her in the fancy clothes they were forced to sew. Once she's prepared, they drag Ifa away to the client. Hours later, Ifa returns with her soul completely broken and her body defiled by that monster. Mahar finds her crying in the barn, begging to be left alone, so Mahar just sits there in the dark with her. From that point on, Ifa was just a shell. Every time she got sold as merchandise, another piece of her soul was deleted. When the others try to speak up, they're silenced, and soon every girl except Mahar has gone through the same nightmare. One night, another girl returns from an assignment and starts sobbing just like Ifa did. In total desperation, she takes a sickle and starts slashing her own face to ruin her looks. Mahar wrestles the blade away, but it's too late, she's already scarred. She just cries that no man will want her now that she's ruined. Years later, these NPCs Toran and Lloyd start plotting to play with Mahar before selling her off to some rich creep. Straight up horror hits her, and she sprints to the barn, haunted by the broken faces of her friends. She grabs a sickle, wondering if she should scar herself to avoid her fate, but stops when a calm voice speaks up from the shadows. It's Luke acting as a Lig, and he hits her with that MC RIZZ, telling her that tears don't suit a face as pretty as hers. Later, Toran rounds up the girls and introduces Luke, saying he wants to adopt one of them. Luke walks straight to Mahar and tells her plainly that she's the one he's taking home today. Toran tries to delay it, but Luke offers way more cash than expected. Toran agrees, but says Luke can only have her in 3 days so they can prepare her. Mahar knows exactly what they want to do to her in those 3 days and begs Luke to take her now, but Toran shuts her down with a look. Luke catches the vibe and warns Toran that Mahar belongs to him now, so she better not have a scratch on her. That night, Mahar is dressed up for her first encounter with the horror. As the carriage moves, Toran whispers that once she's done with the client, it's his turn before Luke shows up. Mahar doesn't think, she just eats herself out of the moving carriage and starts running for her life. But the goon is a mana user too, and he catches up to her in no time. She begs for freedom, but he just smirks, saying he'll let her go after he gets a taste. Just as he's about to get handsy, Luke spawns in and starts handing out a beatdown. Toran pulls up and tries to stop him, but Luke coldly points out that Torren already broke the contract. The goon tries to get back up, so Torren tells him to delete them both and dump the bodies where no one will find them. But Luke is an assassin main. He manhandles the goon and puts a knife to Torren's throat. Meanwhile, Tart is impersonating Mahar and goes to meet the Viscount client. While he's being a creep, the guards burst in and arrest him for trafficking, leaving him absolutely stunned. The next morning, the girls find Noin and realize her ruined face has been completely healed by Luke's magic. And finally, Mahar leaves that nightmare behind to join Luke's new family business. Months later, Luke is fully committed to his Ilig Bala role. He even uses his family's medical hacks to heal his brother from a terminal illness. The father is so grateful he hands over the papers, making Mahar an official and legal member of the Bala household. Later on, the father comes back with plans for an old, failing store owned by the company. It used to be a liquor shop that flopped hard, so it's been sitting empty. He gives Luke total control to flip the property and see if he can actually turn a profit. Luke accepts without blinking, promising to build a business model that makes the old store look like a total joke. That evening, Luke enjoys a nice dinner with his two main girls, Tart and Mahar. While they're eating, he drops the news about the shop proposal, revealing he's already picked out the perfect niche to dominate the market. His plan, a high-end specialty shop for women, knowing that the best way to get info moving fast is through the social circles of the elite. Essentially, the boutique will double as a high-tier intelligence hub to support his real job as a professional ghost. When he mentions cosmetics, Mahar is skeptical, pointing out that the beauty market is already flooded with generic NPCs selling mid-products. But Luke just hits her with that confident MC smirk, knowing he's got the secret sauce to crush the competition. A few days later, Luke invites his fake parents over for a private demo of his new invention. Bala is hyped to see what's up, but his wife is still acting cold as ice, convinced Luke is just some illegitimate kid looking for a handout. Luke unveils a moisturizer, something this world has literally never seen, and he's 100% sure it's going to be an instant meta pick. He breaks down how it works and asks the wife to give it a test drive. She's a hater at first, but the moment she applies it, she realizes her skin is feeling brand new. All that salt turns into pure amazement when she sees her reflection and realizes she looks like a high-tier Kardashian. Bala asks if she can flex the product to her noble friends, and she's so down she even offers to call Luke her actual son if it keeps the supply coming. Seeing the massive W, Bala goes all in on production and tells Luke it's time to hire a massive workforce. But Luke tells him to slow his roll. Hiring too many randoms too fast is a one-way ticket to getting their secret formula leaked to rivals. Bala asks for a timeline on a secure setup, and Luke tells him he needs a month to get the factory floor locked down. He mentions that the main ingredient is a family secret that's gonna cost a pretty penny. Bala doesn't care about the price tag and gives Luke the green light. Later, Luke explains to Tart that while this deal is making them rich, he's never teaching Bala how to make the secret sauce, ensuring they stay indispensable to the company. 6 months later, Luke's boutique, Ornam, officially opens, and it's a total riot with every woman in the city wanting to look like Megan Fox in her prime. Mahar and the girls she rescued are running the shop with military precision, turning a group of orphans into the ultimate sales squad. While watching the crowds from a distance, even Luke is shocked at how fast this side hustle blew up. Tart mentions the hype is so real that even foreign princesses are trying to import Luke's moisturizer to their kingdoms. Tart thinks Luke was being a saint by letting Mahar hire her friends, but Luke stays grounded, saying that was all Mahar's business strategy. Tart isn't buying it though. She knows her master is a softie at heart, even if he denies it. Then they discuss the competition, who have been busy trying to bribe employees for the formula, but so far no one has cracked the code. The secret ingredient remains safely under lock and key. That night, Luke's assassin senses tingle as he detects a rat trespassing on his land. Instead of deleting the intruder himself, he treats it like a tutorial mission for Tart and Mahar. The duo handles the situation perfectly, bagging the intruder and dragging him to the cellar. When Luke checks their work, he finds the guy all tied up and ready for some aggressive questioning. He gives the girls a thumbs up for using their training and watches as they start squeezing the guy for info. A few days later, Luke leaves them in charge while he heads out for his monthly training session with Dyer. When he arrives, they spend the day geeking out over new spell combos, eating sweets, and just enjoying the vibe. As the sun dips, Luke says his goodbyes, promising to be back for their next monthly hangout. Back home, Tart and Mahar end up crashing in his room for the night. The next morning, the girls wake him up with their usual energy. But they notice something is a bit creamy. Luke panics and tries to hide under the covers, realizing he just had a very spicy dream about his two favorite girls. Instead of being weirded out, both girls offer to give him some morning exercise every day to help him out. They even offer to set up a rotation, leaving our cold-blooded assassin totally flustered. Months later, two of Mahar's friends are heading home when a couple of street thugs jump out to rob them. The girls are frozen in fear as the goons move in for the kill. But before the creeps can touch them, Mahar drops in and serves up a high-energy two-piece combo, saving her friends before they lose a single cent to these losers. The girls are in awe of their leader's combat skills, and the legend of Mahar's intervention spreads through the city like wildfire. The next morning, Luke is watching the packed shop when Tart returns from her latest mission. She presents him with a bunch of uniform buttons she took from her enemies as proof of her kills, her way of showing she's been grinding those levels. Luke is a little worried about her collecting trophies from baddies, telling her that's usually a sign of a mental break. But he softens the blow by mentioning that her reputation as the lightning-quick battle maiden is already becoming a legend in Milteau. Tart turns beet-red and begs him to never call her that cringeworthy name ever again. With the shop being a bigger hit than the original iPhone, Luke puts Mahar in charge of the money and the high-level noble gossip network. Being the brains behind the operation, Luke starts getting invites to royal parties, which he uses to scout out even more intel for his future hits. Later that day, Luke and Mahar meet up to prep for his departure from the city. Everything is ready for Mahar to run Ornam solo, as Luke's time as Ilig Bala is finally coming to an end. He's heading back to his family estate to resume his real life as an assassin. Mahar promises to scale the brand until it's so big that baddies from other anime will be trying to buy it. She plans to open new locations, specifically one that used to belong to a legendary merchant. Luke realizes why she picked this spot. He knows her backstory from his earlier investigation into her past. That building was actually the first shop her father ever opened before his business partner betrayed him. Her parents were murdered for their success, and Mahar had to run away to avoid being deleted too. Luke gets that taking this shop back is more about restoring her family's legacy than just making more money. He tells her he's perfectly fine with her personal goals influencing the expansion. As long as the business stays the priority, he's got her back. Relieved, Mahar vows to make him proud with the results. Just then, the girls Luke rescued, now his star employees, come in to say their goodbyes. They give him some custom herbal tea, thanking him for saving them from a dark fate and letting him know they're gonna miss him. Luke promises to remember them and tells them to keep working hard for Mahar while he's gone. A few days later, Mahar is helping Luke with the final packing, and she's shocked to see his real hair color for the first time. Days later, Mahar helps Luke prep for the trip home, and she's shocked by his real hair color as he drops his merchant persona. The three of them head outside to the waiting carriage for the final send-off. Luke leaves Mahar with one last order: grow this business until it rivals Elon Musk's Tesla. Tart is sad to leave her behind, but Mahar is just glad Luke has a reliable shield by his side. She gives Luke a handcrafted doll to remember her by, admitting she used to doubt his motives when they first met. She knows she was originally just a tool because of her mana, but she's grateful he chose to keep her around anyway. She gives him a handmade doll to remember her by, admitting she used to doubt him because her dad taught her never to trust a stranger. On the way home, the carriage is suddenly swarmed by a pack of wolf monsters. Tart handles it like a pro, telling the driver to hide while she deals with the trash solo. Luke gives her the okay, and she leaps out and starts shredding the beasts with her spear. By the time the driver dares to look out, the threat has been totally neutralized. Luke notices how much faster Tart has gotten over the last 2 years. Her stats are definitely climbing. He scans the area, realizing the monster spawns are getting more frequent, which means the hero's arrival is close. Eventually, they cross back into Luke's home turf and stop by the local village. The locals treat him like a king, thanking him for all the prosperity his trade deals have brought to the region. When they finally reach the mansion, Esri rushes out and gives Luke a massive hug, ordering him to never leave her again. After she's done mothering him, she thanks Tart for staying loyal and keeping her stubborn son safe. Luke asks where his dad is and finds out Sion is waiting for him in his study. Inside, Sion officially welcomes him back and congratulates him on graduating from his merchant training. He tells Luke he's proud of the man he's become, but then gets serious about his future. Sion explains that the whole merchant thing was to show Luke that he could have a normal, successful life away from the blood and shadows. Apparently, Balor was so impressed he visited Sion just to beg him to let Luke stay a merchant forever. Sion says he won't stop Luke if he wants to hang up the hidden blade for good. But Luke doesn't hesitate. He enjoyed being a Lig Balor, but his identity as an assassin is who he really is. Sion asks if he's absolutely sure, and Luke drops the real reason. Living as a merchant was fun and all, but he's not giving up his assassin title if it means he can't eventually marry his best girl, Daya. Sin suggests that Luke should maybe just quit the assassin life. Sin says he's cool with it if that's what Luke actually wants. But Luke tells him that while being a merchant was fun, being a top-tier assassin is his true identity. Sin asks if he's 100% sure, and Luke doesn't blink. Staying a merchant means he could never marry his best girl, Daya, since she's a noble and his merchant persona is just a commoner. Sion laughs at that logic but praises Luke's choice, giving him the green light to stay on the assassin grind. With the career path locked in, Sion hands over Luke's first official mission. He drops a dossier on a corrupt noble who's been moving mid-tier narcotics. This dude is secretly selling military secrets to enemy states just to fund his drug habit. It's a massive threat to national security, so the kingdom has officially cancelled his life subscription. Sion tells Luke he can handle the deletion by whatever method he thinks is most op. Back at his quarters, Luke briefs Tart on the new assignment. The target is Count Spavenka, but before Luke pulls the trigger, he wants to scout the area and make sure this noble actually deserves a knife to the throat. He sends a coded message to Mahar via pigeon mail to set up an infiltration into the Count's mansion. The next morning, his mom Esri spawns in his room. She heard from the girls about his morning creamy mess, and now she wants to inspect the goods herself. Luke asks if she's really trying to check out her son's glizzy, and this absolute menace of a mom says absolutely. Tart pulls up to save him for breakfast, and Luke has to yeet his mom out of the room before she sees his legendary weapon. Later, Esri presents him with pictures of 3 noble girls, telling him to pick his favorite waifu. She cheerfully explains that whichever girl he picks is going to be his future wife, no questions asked. Luke hits her with a hard pass, saying he isn't about that arranged marriage life. His mom starts throwing a tantrum, complaining that she needs to hold some grandkids before her time is up. Tart is suffering through the cringe in silence, but Luke tells her she's allowed to speak up and roast the situation. Tart bows and basically tells Esri she's acting like a low-tier NPC who spends too much time flexing her melons on OnlyFans. She says it's way too early for Luke to be a dad, but Esri says if his gun can fire, he should be out there spreading his seed everywhere. Suddenly, Esri gets an idea. Why doesn't Tart just become the baby mama? She's got mana and 0 political drama, the perfect build. Tart goes full tomato mode, but notice how she doesn't actually say no to the offer. Luke steps in before things get even freakier, telling his mom to stop being a total weirdo. But Esri insists she's dead serious and starts calling him cruel for rejecting her vision. She starts with the fake sobbing to guilt trip him, but those crocodile tears don't work on a Chad like Luke, who realizes he's got to stay cold when dealing with her. That night, Luke and Tart slip out to do some recon on Venka's land, wanting to see exactly how much of a villain this Count really is. Thanks to their elite speed stats, they reach the border by sunrise. They pass by a ton of injured soldiers who look like they've seen better days. Luke realizes these guys were forced into a losing battle because their own noble leaders sold their battle plans to the enemy for drug money. They take a side road and find a girl selling jars of jam to the locals. Tart picks one out for Luke, but the moment he tastes it, he knows it's a trap. He smashes the whole batch, and while the girl is panicking, 3 thugs pull up to settle the score. Luke and Tart delete them easily, wondering if they've found the drug distribution hub. Luke notes these are just the low-level mobs. They need to find the boss behind the operation. He asks the girl if she knows she's selling poison, but the poor kid says it's the only way to get her mom the medicine she needs. They follow her home and find a drug-addicted mom who starts screaming at her daughter for losing the jars. When the mom tries to hit the girl, Luke jumps in and pins her to the floor like a pro wrestler. The girl tries to help, but Tart holds her back and tells her to let the MC cook. Luke uses magic to knock her out and actually rewires her body so she doesn't physically need the drugs anymore. But the mental addiction is still there, and that's a bug even Luke's magic can't patch. They head back home just as a new shipment of Orna cosmetics arrives. Hidden inside is a message from Mahar confirming that Count Venka is the head of the narcotics ring. Since he's backed by corrupt officials, Luke decides it's time for some professional cleaning. A few days later, Luke and Mahar head to the Count's place, and Mahar takes the chance to get all cozy and tell him she missed him. She asks if he's finally done any hot yoga with Tart yet, hinting at the spicy stuff. She says Tart wouldn't mind being a mistress since Daya is the main lady, and Mahar is basically feeling the same way. She jokes that since she runs his business, he can never get rid of her and will eventually have no choice but to fall for her. They arrive at Venka's estate using the excuse of gifting his wife the newest Orna products. The wife is obsessed and asks why they're being so generous to their household. Luke smooth talks her, saying they want the Count's influence to back their brand, and she buys it. Count Venka walks in, and Luke hits him with that Ilig Bala, fake glazing to make sure the target doesn't suspect a thing. Venka thanks them for keeping his wife happy, saying she loves cosmetics almost as much as her husband. He dips to attend some business, giving Luke the perfect chance to study his habits. Our MC is absorbing every detail like a sponge. Later, at a big party at the estate, Luke is swarmed by fans as usual. But when the Count's wife shows off her new skin, the ladies swarm her like cavemen seeing fire for the first time. Venka pulls Luke aside for a drink, apologizing for using his popularity to hype up the party. Luke plays it cool and brings up trade deals, but Venka acts humble, saying his little shop is nothing compared to the Bala juggernaut. Luke spends the night mingling and toasts with Mahar, but he never takes his eyes off the target. Once the party is over, Luke and Tart slip back in to finally finish the mission. He learned from the wife that Venka has a nightly ritual of drinking alone on the terrace. From long range, Luke clicks on his mystic eyes and aims his rifle, knowing he's doing this as a man with a choice. He pulls the trigger, and the Count is deleted before he even knows death has joined the chat. But when the wife finds the body and starts crying, Luke is hit with a wave of unexpected emotions. His old self never would have cared, and he needs Tart to help him snap out of it. Weeks later, they're back from a brutal training arc on a desert island and meet up with Mahar, who has some bad news. She starts with the good news first. She found the divine treasure Luke was looking for. Tart asks what that is, and Luke explains they're op relics with god-tier powers. They're ancient tools that are basically indestructible and impossible to replicate. The artifact is the legendary Gi Bolg, owned by a warrior named Setanta Magnus, the Hound of Khan. Mahar is trying to buy it from him, and there are rumors this Setanta might actually be the prophesied hero. Luke asks if she can secure the bag, and she's confident she can get the spear for him. But then she drops the dark news. A civil war has broken out in the Souseg kingdom, and Daya's family is in the middle of it. The rebels have a champion who's clearing out the battlefield like a fat man at a buffet, and it's none other than Setanta Magnus. The next day, Luke spawns at Daya's place, and she teases him about missing her sweet cheeks. She brings him inside for tea and asks if he brought any chocolates like a good boyfriend. Luke is confused by how chill she is, and asks if the war is going as badly as it looks. Daya laughs it off, saying her region is peaceful despite the chaos in the rest of the kingdom. Luke isn't convinced and asks if her family is really getting involved in the fight. Daya tells him to relax, reminding him her bloodline is full of sorcerers who are basically as op as Gojo. But Luke won't back down, reminding her that the rebels are gaining ground fast. Daya jokes that if the kingdom had assassins as skilled as him, the rebellion would have been over in a day. Luke offers to sneak her whole family out of the country using his merchant status, but that just makes her mad. She snaps at him, saying she'll never abandon her people when things get tough. She tells him to stop worrying about things he can't control and forces him to take her out on the town. He tries to stop her, but she just ignores him and makes him pick out a dress for their outing. They wander through town until Luke's spider sense for warriors starts tingling at a random merchant. He can tell the guy is a high-level veteran just by his vibe. He notices the town is crawling with trained fighters, and Daya explains that the war brought a lot of mercenaries into the area. Luke realizes the quiet peace of the town is just a mask for the massive storm that's about to hit. And he knows that in a war this big, even an op assassin is going to have to get his hands dirty. While they're on their little date, Daya spots a shooting gallery and drags Luke in to show off. She wants that fluffy teddy bear prize, but she bans him from using any magic hacks, calling it a total skill issue if he cheats. Luke knows his aimbot-level assassin skills would make this a cakewalk, so instead of playing himself, he decides to coach her through it. Her first shot is a total whiff, but he tells her to take a breath and stop overthinking the mechanics. The second shot is a miss too, but on the third try she finally hits the mark and secures the bag, celebrating like she just beat a Dark Souls boss. Next up, she's craving lasagna, so they head to a local spot known for having the most op pasta in town. Over dinner, she admits she prefers the MC's cooking over any restaurant NPC, so he promises to cook her a 5-star meal next time she visits. For a split second, her bright smile fades into something sad, and Luke starts wondering what's actually going on in her head. She hits him with the classic, "I'm fine," but makes him pinky promise that he'll definitely cook for her again. On the walk back, they find a lost kid, and Luke uses a teddy bear as a puppet to get the little guy to stop crying. The kid explains he got separated from his mom in the crowd. Daya uses her magic to track the mom's voice frequency, and they manage to pull off a successful reunion mission. Later, she leads him to a secluded hot spring. Luke starts getting nervous when he realizes they're solo in the bath, and she might have some spicy plans. But Daya isn't letting him escape. She pulls him straight into the water for some serious plot development. After some splashing around where Daya almost gets deleted by the water, she gets serious, talking about her refusal to ever abandon her hometown. She's waiting for her dad to come back from the front lines, which is why she won't go into hiding with Luke, even for her own safety. He respects her choice, but he's still setting up an escape route in case things go south and she changes her mind. The vibe turns romantic in the water, and they share a sweet kiss to cap off the ultimate date. Luke prepares to head out shortly after, promising he'll be back to check on her soon. Daya says she's gonna be busy for a while, so Luke promises to make her that legendary lasagna and wait for her no matter what. As soon as the MC is out of sight, her mask slips, her smile vanishes, and she orders her guards to stop pretending to be NPCs. Turns out the entire town was filled with soldiers in disguise. She lied about the peace just so their final date could be a beautiful memory instead of a war zone. Later, Luke is chilling with Daya's necklace when Tart comes sprinting in with some high-level bad news. There's a major problem, and they rush home to find his parents patching up a bloody messenger who nearly got sent to the afterlife. Sion tells him there's a new contract on the table, and he wants Luke to handle the execution personally. The mission: assassinate the daughter of Count Vicon, and that target is none other than Daya Vicon herself. Luke is absolutely shook. He's being ordered to delete his own first love. Sion says he can walk away if he wants, then drops the truth about the messy political situation behind the hit. After Daya's kingdom lost the war, her father took total responsibility for the failure to protect his people. He gave up his lands, but the creepy rebels wanted Daya as a prize. To stop the killing, her dad agreed to an arranged marriage for her. Daya knew the score and was ready to sacrifice her freedom just to stop the pointless bloodshed. But the Count's loyalists weren't having it. They attacked the royal guards and locked the family inside the fortress to protect them from the rebels. The royal court saw this as a second uprising and marked the whole region for total deletion. Luke realizes the crown wants to solve the problem by just removing Daya from the equation permanently. When he asks who put out the hit, Sion reveals the client is actually Daya's own father, the Count. The injured messenger is one of the Count's men who risked his life just to deliver the desperate plea. But the hit isn't real. The Count wants a staged death so Daya can be saved and removed from the kingdom's radar for good. He knows even if he stops the rebellion, the kingdom won't stop until the Vicon bloodline is completely erased from history. Determined to save his daughter, he's putting all his chips on the family of elite assassins. Luke asks why Sion is taking a job that betrays the crown, and his dad admits he owes the Count a massive personal debt. Sion says he'd do it himself, but with his mid-tier mana, he knows he wouldn't be fast enough to pull off the rescue. Luke weighs the risk, and remembering how he was just a mindless tool in his past life, he refuses to make the same mistake again. In the end, love wins out, and he officially accepts the mission to save his girl. Even though he's technically betraying the kingdom, Sion praises him for bending his principles to save the woman he loves. Luke is shook because his dad was always the guy with the highest moral compass. Sion reveals the only other time he broke the rules was for Luke's mom, Esri, who is also a Vicon, making Daya and Luke cousins. With that plot twist out of the way, Luke prepares for the trek to Vicon territory, hundreds of miles away. Tart begs to go along, knowing her mana won't last the whole way, but wanting to act as a battery to save Luke's energy for the fight. Using the wind magic Luke taught her, she boosts them across the land with speed that rivals the Flash. Luke is amazed by her dedication, but worried that the strain is taking a massive toll on her body. Tart doesn't care about the burden. Her only desire is to be useful to the man who gave her a reason to live. She's always known she was recruited for her op mana potential and her ability to use magic. But she also knows he saved her life and granted her a future she never would have had on her own. Because of that, she doesn't hesitate to bet her entire life on him. As they race toward the destination, the weather turns and the rain starts falling in sheets. Luke tells her to stand down and preserve her strength, but she refuses to stop and presses on through the storm. She doesn't slow down until her mana tank is bone dry, stopping only when the backlash almost knocks her out. Luke catches her before she hits the dirt, thanking her for carrying him this far on her own. Tart makes him promise that no matter what, he has to bring Daya back alive, and Luke gives her his word. He sets off solo, and as soon as he's gone, Tart breaks down. She's madly in love with him, and it hurts knowing his heart belongs solely to Daya. Hours later, Luke reaches the war zone and pauses to assess the situation on the battlefield. The Royal Army has 1,500 troops while Vicon's defenders have barely 200, not great odds. The attackers have way more mages, but for some reason, they haven't been able to breach the town yet. Luke finds a high ground vantage point and starts assembling his custom-made rifle. One by one, he starts sniping the royal magic users, sending their ranks into a total state of panic. Daya is firing from the castle too, so the sudden appearance of a second unseen marksman completely bamboozles them. Luke makes it even more chaotic by yeeting mana-charged stones into their ranks, giving them a taste of literal grenades. Seeing the opening, the Vicon forces charge the royal army, and a full-scale battle erupts across the field. Amid the turmoil, Luke slips toward the castle, and seeing a corpse there gives him a dark idea. Using his mystic eyes, he traces the safest path through the chaos straight toward Daya's chamber. At last, he reaches the door and unlocks it without making a sound. The moment Daya sees the man she loves, she runs straight into his arms, overjoyed that he actually came back. The Count sees the chemistry and is just happy his daughter is in good hands with the MC. He explains his own soldiers locked them in because they didn't want him to surrender to the crown. Luke asks what the game plan is now that he's officially arrived on the scene. The Count says he'll ride out and draw all the aggro to himself since he's the main target. Once the allies withdraw safely, he'll vanish and go into hiding until he can plan a comeback. Luke agrees and adds his part. He'll torch the room so it looks like Daya took her own life in despair. He uses a dead soldier as a body double to sell the fake death, and the Count is impressed by the high IQ play. Luke tells Daya to open the window and shout that she will never belong to anyone to set the scene. She gets ready to do it, but Luke's spider sense starts screaming, the same feeling he had right before his past life betrayal. Trusting his gut, he activates his mystic eyes and scans the ground below. There he is, the prophesied hero, Setanta Magnus, wielding the divine weapon Gi Bolg. The moment Luke understands what he's about to do, his heart rate starts redlining. Setanta yeets the spear, and it deletes everything in its path as it zooms toward the castle. In an instant, Luke throws up a spell to slow it and tackles Daya to the floor just in time. The spear slams into the chamber with insane force, but the divine weapon stays totally untouched. It rebounds and flies back to Setanta like a magical boomerang or Thor's hammer. Luke sees Setanta is overflowing with cracked mana, so he pulls out his heavy artillery, the cannon. He tells Daya and the Count to brace themselves, then fires a direct shot straight at the hero. The blast is massive, but when the smoke clears, Setanta is still standing and smiling through the blood. What a monster. Luke realizes the guy has the S-rank skill, Berserk. It boosts his stats through rage, basically turning him into an unstoppable guts. Setanta offers Luke a choice: watch everyone die or face him in single combat like a knight. He swears if Luke manages to win, he will withdraw his army and leave the Vicon lands alone. Daya begs Luke to refuse, but he stays silent, running the numbers in his head. With that spear and the Berserk buff, the hero is a walking cheat code. A fair fight is a guaranteed loss. However, Luke chooses to accept the duel, leaving Daya in a state of total horror. He admits he'd lose in a brawl, but calmly tells her he has a plan to survive. Summoning a bomb-like device, he reminds her he's no hero but an assassin, and he'll end this like one. He uses magic to send the bomb away and asks the Count to come with him. He needs a witness for the hero's upcoming accident. As they approach, the Vicon soldiers pull back to clear the area for the clash. Setanta's face lights up at the sight of a challenger, and he demands to know the MC's name. Luke uses a fake name to hide his ID, noticing that the enemy's wounds have already auto-healed like some op boss. Seeing this, he double-checks if this beast is actually gonna dip. If he catches the El Setanta swears on his mama's life that he's a man of his word. Luke hits him with the ultimate trash talk, promising he won't even live to see tomorrow. The Berserker just laughs, thinking it's a joke. Setanta tells his squad that if he loses, the army has to honor his vow and retreat immediately. He tells Luke to start, but our MC stalls the fight, asking the hero to move his NPCs way back so they don't get caught in the crossfire of his ultimate move. Setanta is down for the challenge, and even the Count gives his blessing, wishing Luke good luck before heading to the sidelines. With the 1v1 finally set, Luke pulls out a coin and says the match starts the second it touches the dirt. As the coin drops, they both prep to go for the throat, while the goddess is eating popcorn in the heavens, hyped to see Luke's progression. But the moment it hits, the secret weapon Luke prepped earlier streaks down from the atmosphere like a tactical nuke, delivering a fat man-level greeting. In his past life, Luke knew about a satellite weapon called the Rod of God. Using this world's magic, he basically built an orbital strike to delete this spear-wielding raid boss. The blast is cataclysmic. The shockwave yeets Luke through the air, forcing him to use magic just to not turn into a pancake as he smashes into a ruined wall. His vision is fading, but he's pretty sure he secured the bag. Then it's lights out as he collapses. Luke wakes up to Daya screaming his name. When she sees he's still in the game, she tackles him in pure relief. She thanks him for the save, but asks why he'd bet his life on a war that wasn't even his to fight. Our MC stays smooth, saying he promised to be there when she needed him most. Hearing that, she's ready to pay him back in full. Looking around, Luke realizes the explosion was a bit too op. There are 0 enemy survivors, so faking her death is officially off the table. Daya isn't even mad though. Luke pulls her in for a victory kiss, and she happily returns the energy. Days later, Luke heads home with his prize, while her father and his crew dip to find a new server to live on. Back at the Assassin HQ, They decide to claim Daya as their own daughter since she looks enough like Esri to pass the vibe check. With her ID fixed, Sion drops a bombshell. The actual hero just spawned in their kingdom. Luke is shook, realizing he wasted a literal orbital strike on some mid-tier steroid user. He adds that with the real hero emerging, it means the Demon King is close behind. He tells Luke to stay locked in, because it's their job to delete these world-tier threats if they get out of pocket. If you made it to the end of this recap, comment Assassin RIZZ LORD down below. And if you love banger anime recaps like this,